The Racket, a rogue reporter versus the American Empire by Matt Kennard, is a powerful exposé on how a small elite class, primarily in the United States, manipulates global power structures for its own benefit. Kennard, a former journalist for the Financial Times, uses his insider knowledge to reveal how governments, corporations, and intelligence agencies work together to entrench inequality and maintain global dominance. Kennard begins by reflecting on his experiences as a journalist with access to powerful figures and institutions. This privileged position allowed him to see firsthand the vast gulf between the public narrative and the brutal reality of global politics. His investigation unveils a world where decisions made behind closed doors have catastrophic consequences for ordinary people worldwide. Kennard's journey exposes the hidden machinations that shape our world. Creating a modern-day slave state, economic policies imposed by international financial institutions have created conditions that mirror slavery in many parts of the world. These policies strip nations of their sovereignty and force them into cycles of debt and dependency. The Racket Kennard defines the racket as an elite system of political and corporate collusion that ensures wealth and power remain concentrated at the top while the masses suffer. Rigging the system, lobbying, regulatory capture, and the revolving door between corporations and government ensure that the system works for the elite, not the people. Cursing your riches, resource-rich countries are often among the poorest due to foreign exploitation and corporate-backed corruption. The so-called resource curse is no accident, it's by design. The mob Kennard draws chilling parallels between organized crime and the way governments and corporations operate, using coercion, violence, and corruption to maintain control. Just as mobsters use fear and intimidation to keep their power, so too do these larger entities. They manipulate laws, exploit loopholes, and use their influence to silence dissent. The line between legality and criminality blurs, creating a system where the powerful can act with impunity. This systemic corruption is not just a series of isolated incidents, but a deeply ingrained part of how power is maintained and exercised. With friends like these, the United States forms alliances with authoritarian regimes under the guise of strategic interests, propping up dictators who serve elite agendas. These alliances are often justified as necessary for national security or economic stability, but they come at a high cost. Human rights abuses are overlooked, and democratic movements are suppressed. The US government turns a blind eye to the suffering of ordinary people in these countries, prioritizing its own geopolitical goals over the principles of freedom and justice it claims to uphold. Might is Right US military interventions, framed as efforts to promote democracy, are in reality about protecting economic interests and expanding geopolitical control. These interventions often destabilize regions, leading to prolonged conflicts and humanitarian crises. The narrative of spreading democracy is a convenient cover for actions driven by the desire to control resources and strategic locations. The true cost of these interventions is borne by the civilian populations who suffer from the ensuing chaos and violence. A drug war colony. The war on drugs has been used as an excuse for military intervention in Latin America, escalating violence while securing US influence over the region. Under the pretext of combating drug trafficking, the US has supported repressive regimes and conducted military operations that have devastated local communities. The real beneficiaries of this war are not the people of Latin America, but the political and economic interests that gain from maintaining control over the region. The human cost is immense, with countless lives lost and communities torn apart. War on Hope grassroots movements that challenge the status quo are systematically discredited, infiltrated, or crushed to prevent real systemic change. These movements represent the voices of ordinary people demanding justice, equality, and a better future. However, they are often portrayed as threats to national security or public order. Governments and corporations use a variety of tactics to undermine these movements, from surveillance and infiltration to outright violence. The goal is to maintain the existing power structures and prevent any meaningful change that could disrupt the status quo. Part 3. Reinforcement. The first peoples of America and their land indigenous populations have faced centuries of dispossession and violence, with corporations and the state working hand in hand to exploit their lands. Working America. The decline of labor rights and the middle class is no accident. It's the result of deliberate policies designed to concentrate wealth at the top. Destitute America. The US economy is rigged to keep the working class in a state of permanent struggle, while billionaires profit. Lock up America. Mass incarceration is used as a tool of social control, with private prisons and harsh sentencing laws disproportionately targeting marginalized communities. Yet, amidst the struggle, communities rise, resist, and fight for justice, showing the resilience and spirit of the people. Part 4. We're losing you. Turf war. Global power struggles are fought over resources, with emerging nations challenging US dominance, often leading to covert interventions and conflicts. Freedom fighters. Kennard highlights individuals and movements that resist the empire, often at great personal risk. Revolutionaries. Throughout history, people have fought to overthrow oppressive systems, and Kennard examines their struggles and successes. Successful defiance. He presents case studies where resistance movements have won against all odds, providing lessons for future activism. Culture as a weapon of resistance. Art, music, and literature play a crucial role in challenging elite narratives and inspiring mass movements. United we stand, together we can create a future where justice and equality prevail. Afterward. A call to action. Kennard concludes by emphasizing the need for continued vigilance and activism. He connects the dots between historical struggles and modern-day oppression, urging readers to challenge the systems that exploit them. Kennard exposes how unelected, secretive US agencies like the CIA have played a pivotal role in destabilizing governments and orchestrating the removal, often through assassination, of leaders who refuse to bow to US corporate interests. While the Racket covers these covert operations in detail, it does not specifically mention the assassination of President John F. Kennedy in 1963. The call to action is clear. We must unite, stay informed, and actively resist the forces that seek to undermine our freedoms. The assassination of John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, remains one of the most hotly debated topics in modern history. The young and charismatic president's life was cut short in a brutal and public manner, leaving the nation in shock and mourning. Over the decades, countless theories have emerged, each attempting to unravel the mystery behind his untimely death. Was it the act of a lone gunman, or was there a more sinister plot at play? The official Warren Commission report insists that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but overwhelming evidence suggests that the CIA orchestrated the assassination. Critics argue that the Commission's findings were a cover-up, designed to protect powerful interests. The inconsistencies in the evidence, the mysterious deaths of key witnesses, and the suppression of crucial information have fueled suspicions of a broader conspiracy. In January 2025, former President Donald Trump signed an executive order mandating the declassification of all remaining documents related to the assassinations of JFK, Robert F. Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This unprecedented move was hailed by many as a step towards transparency and truth. The hope was that these documents would finally shed light on the dark corners of American history and provide answers to questions that have lingered for decades. As a result, the FBI discovered 2,400 previously undisclosed records related to JFK's assassination. These documents included internal memos, witness testimonies, and classified reports that had been hidden from the public eye. The sheer volume of new information was staggering, and researchers and historians eagerly began to sift through the files, hoping to piece together the truth. Among the most damning revelations was the testimony of James Files, a former mob hitman who claims he fired the fatal shot from the grassy knoll under CIA orders. Files' confession, recorded in a series of interviews, provided chilling details of the plot. He described how he was recruited by the CIA, trained in covert operations, and ultimately tasked with eliminating the president. His account, while controversial, has been corroborated by other sources, adding weight to the theory of a CIA-led conspiracy. While the official narrative continues to deny CIA involvement, the newly released files strongly indicate that Kennedy was eliminated because he threatened the power of the US intelligence community and corporate interests. The documents reveal a pattern of surveillance, intimidation, and covert operations aimed at neutralizing perceived threats to the status quo. Kennedy's policies, which sought to reduce the influence of the CIA and promote peace, were seen as a direct challenge to the entrenched power structures. His desire to dismantle the CIA, end the Cold War, and curb military expansion made him a prime target for removal. Just as other democratically elected leaders had been eliminated in countries where US corporate interests were at stake. Kennedy's vision for a more just and peaceful world was at odds with the ambitions of those who profited from conflict and control. As more information comes to light, the true extent of the conspiracy against him becomes increasingly apparent, challenging the official history and reshaping our understanding of this pivotal moment in American history. Kennedy's assassination was not an isolated incident. It was part of a broader pattern of covert operations and political interventions orchestrated by powerful interests. These actions have shaped the geopolitical landscape in ways that are often hidden from public view. 1953. Iran Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh was overthrown in a CIA-led coup after he nationalized Iran's oil industry, threatening British and US profits. This event marked a significant moment in the history of US foreign interventions, setting a precedent for future actions aimed at protecting economic interests under the guise of promoting stability. 1961, Congo Patrice Lumumba, the first elected prime minister, was assassinated with US backing after he opposed Western exploitation of Congo's resources. His death plunged the country into chaos, illustrating the lengths to which the US would go to maintain control over valuable resources and strategic regions. 1973, Chile. The CIA orchestrated the coup against President Salvador Allende, replacing him with the brutal dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet to protect US business interests. This intervention led to years of repression and human rights abuses, all in the name of safeguarding American economic dominance in the region. 2009, Honduras. The democratically elected President Manuel Zelaya was ousted in a US-backed coup after enacting policies that challenged American corporate power. This modern example shows that the tactics of intervention and control have not changed, only the contexts in which they are applied. This is the reality of US foreign policy. Not democracy, not human rights, but ruthless imperial control. These actions reveal a consistent strategy of using political and military power to secure economic interests, often at the expense of local populations and their right to self-determination. The pattern is clear, and the consequences are profound. Matt Kennard's The Racket is a crucial exposé of the brutal system that keeps wealth and power concentrated in the hands of a few, at the expense of billions worldwide. It rips apart the propaganda that the US is a force for good and lays bare the reality, a system built on war, economic exploitation, and corporate greed. A government that claims to protect freedom but actively suppresses it worldwide. A shadow empire ruled by unelected intelligence agencies, waging war against truth itself. The fight against imperialism and economic tyranny is far from over. But the first step is waking up to the truth.